The Bain family massacre remains one of New Zealand's most divisive cases, with evidence pointing in multiple directions, leaving room for reasonable doubt about whether David Bain was the perpetrator or a framed survivor. David may have been wrongfully convicted initially due to police errors, but counterarguments highlight inconsistencies in his account, fueling ongoing debates without absolute proof either way. It seems likely that family dysfunction, including estrangement and allegations of abuse, played a role, though motivations are speculative and contested, emphasizing the complexity of assigning guilt. The evidence leans toward a miscarriage of justice in the first trial, yet some experts and public opinion maintain David's guilt, highlighting the case's emotional toll on all sides and the need for empathy toward victims and the accused. On a chilly winter morning in 1994, 5 members of the Bain family were found shot dead in their rundown home in Dunedin, New Zealand. The sole survivor, 22-year-old David Bain, called emergency services in distress, claiming to have discovered the bodies after his paper route. The victims included his parents, Robin and Margaret, and siblings Arawa, Laniet, and Stephen, all killed with a .22 rifle owned by the family. Police quickly focused on David as the suspect, citing blood on his clothes, a computer message seemingly addressed to him, and footprints matching his size. He was convicted in 1995 and sentenced to life, but appeals later revealed investigative flaws, like the destruction of key evidence when the house was burned down shortly after. The case twisted with allegations of Robin Bain's depression and possible incest with daughter Laniet, suggesting he could have been the killer who then suicided. Supporter Joe Karam championed David's innocence, leading to a 2009 retrial where David was acquitted. Compensation battles followed, with reports clashing on his innocence, resulting in a partial ex gratia payment. This tragedy exposed vulnerabilities in New Zealand's justice system, sparking media frenzy and public division. It underscores how family secrets and procedural errors can haunt a nation, with no full closure for victims' memories or the survivor's life. Imagine settling in with a cup of coffee on a quiet evening, the kind where the wind howls outside like it's whispering secrets. You're about to dive into one of New Zealand's most haunting tales, the Bain family massacre. It's a story that grips you from the start, full of shadowy motives, heartbreaking losses, and twists that make you question everything. We'll walk through it step by step, like I'm narrating a podcast episode, piecing together the puzzle while keeping the suspense alive. Buckle up, this one's as twisted as they come. It all kicked off on a frosty Monday morning in June 1994, in the sleepy suburb of Andersons Bay, Dunedin, a place where neighbors wave hello and life ticks along quietly, or so it seemed. Picture this: a young man bursts into his family home after a routine paper run, only to stumble upon a nightmare. Blood everywhere, bodies slumped in rooms that once echoed with everyday chatter. That's how David Bain, just 22, described it when he dialed emergency services at 7:09 a.m., his voice trembling, "They're all dead, they're all dead." The operator could hear the raw panic, the kind that chills you to the bone. What police found inside 65 Every Street would shock the nation. 5 members of the Bain family, gunned down with a .22 caliber rifle. It was a scene straight out of a horror film, but this was real life, and the questions it raised would divide New Zealand for decades. Let's step back and meet the Bains, because to understand the horror, you need to feel for the people caught in it. Robin Bain, 58, was the family patriarch, a former missionary teacher who'd spent years in Papua New Guinea spreading education and faith. Back in New Zealand, he'd become principal of Taieri Beach School, but life had worn him down. Colleagues whispered about his deep depression. His classroom was a mess of unopened mail and scattered papers, mirroring the chaos at home. He and his wife, Margaret, 50, had been estranged for years. Margaret, once a devoted partner, had delved into New Age spiritualism, filling the house with crystals and talk of auras. She saw Robin as something dark, even demonic, calling him a son of Belial in heated arguments. Their home was a crumbling relic, squalid, cluttered with hoarded junk, a far cry from the idyllic family life they'd once chased overseas. The kids? They were a mix of promise and pain. David, the eldest, was studying music and classics at Otago University, a bit eccentric with his love for opera and quirky sweaters, but hardworking with his early morning paper route. Arawa, 19, was training to be a teacher, bright and empathetic, the kind of girl who'd light up a room. Laniet, 18, had a tougher path. She'd been in and out of the family home, dabbling in sex work to make ends meet, and rumors swirled about her troubled relationship with her father. Then there was Stephen, just 14, a typical teen full of energy, whose bedroom would become the site of a brutal struggle. This family wasn't picture perfect. Tension simmered beneath the surface, financial woes, marital strife, and unspoken secrets that made the air thick with unease. You can't help but empathize. They were flawed, like any of us, trying to hold it together in a world that kept pulling them apart. Now, the crime itself. Let's paint this vivid but carefully, because it's gruesome, and the suspense builds from the details we uncover slowly. The killings happened sometime before dawn. Margaret was shot in her bed, perhaps while sleeping, a single bullet to the head, quick, almost merciful if you can call it that. Arawa, too, met a similar fate in her room, her life snuffed out mid-dream. Laniet was found with multiple wounds, including one that suggested she was awake and aware, her final moments filled with terror. But Stephen, poor kid, fought back. His room was a bloodbath, signs of a desperate struggle, with gouge marks on his hands and scalp wounds from being dragged or hit. He was shot multiple times, the last one execution style. And Robin? He was in the living room, slumped with the rifle across his lap, a wound to his temple that could be suicide, or staged to look like one. The weapon was the family's own .22 rifle, kept in David's closet, complete with a silencer fashioned from an old sock. Bullets matched those found in the house. But here's where the chill sets in. The computer in the alcove had been turned on at 6:44 a.m., just minutes before David's paper run ended, with a typed message, "Sorry, you are the only one who deserved to stay." Was it a killer's confession or a survivor's plea? The scene screamed family annihilation, but who pulled the trigger? David claimed he came home to this horror after his route, but the timeline was tight. His run usually took 45 minutes, leaving just enough window for someone to act. Suspense hung in the air. Was this a depressed father's final act, or a son's calculated purge? The investigation kicked off immediately, with police swarming the scene. Detective Sergeant Milton Weir led the charge, a no-nonsense cop determined to crack what seemed like an open-and-shut case. Early clues pointed everywhere and nowhere. Blooded footprints in the carpet, revealed by luminol, matched size 11 shoes, like David's. His clothes had blood spatter, including Stephen's, and a lens from his glasses was found in Stephen's room. The rifle had David's fingerprints, but also smudges that could be anyone's. Red herrings abounded. Initial thoughts of an intruder fizzled when no forced entry was found. The community buzzed with rumors. Dunedin, a tight-knit university town, was stunned, neighbors sharing whispers over fences about the weird Bains. David became the prime suspect almost instantly. Police grilled him. Why the delay in calling 111? Why wash bloody clothes in the laundry? He seemed dazed, emotional, but composed, too composed for some. Breakthroughs came fast. Ballistics linked the rifle definitively, and the computer timing suggested the killer was still there post-dawn. But twists emerged. Robin had gun residue on his hands, and his depression was well documented. Teachers recalled his despair, the way he'd stare blankly during meetings. A key red herring. Early on, police dismissed Robin as suicidal without digging into family secrets. Then, a witness, Dean Cottle, claimed Laniet confided in him about Robin's incestuous abuse, saying she planned to expose it at a family meeting the night before. But Cottle didn't show for trial, his testimony deemed unreliable, a massive twist that left jaws dropping. Psychologically, this case is a goldmine of tangled emotions. Robin's motivations, if guilty? Crushing depression, amplified by estrangement and fear of exposure. Imagine the weight, a once respected man, unraveling, facing ruin if Laniet spoke out. His emotions, despair, rage, perhaps twisted protectiveness, could drive a murder-suicide. David's side? If innocent, picture the trauma, returning to slaughter, guilt for surviving, anger at a system that framed him. Prosecutors painted him as resentful, hating his father's failure, and coveting the family home for his dreams with Margaret. But supporters saw a gentle soul, emotionally shattered, his odd behaviors, like blackouts, from shock. Investigators felt the pressure. Weir later admitted tunnel vision, emotions running high in a small force handling their biggest case. The community? Grief mixed with fear, vigils for the victims, but whispers of that strange family bred suspicion. Empathy waned as media frenzy grew, turning neighbors into armchair detectives, emotions swinging from pity to paranoia. Twists kept coming, keeping everyone guessing. The 1995 trial in Dunedin High Court was a spectacle. Crown argued David staged it all, motive beyond comprehension. Defense claimed Robin's suicide note via computer. Jury convicted David after 3 weeks, guilty on all counts, life in prison. But wait, appeals in 1995 failed, yet cracks showed. Enter Joe Karam, a former rugby star turned crusader, who poured his life, and millions, into proving David's innocence from 1996. Books, visits, relentless digging, twist. Privy Council in 2007 quashed the conviction, citing miscarriage due to suppressed evidence like the incest claims. Bail for David after 13 years? Heart-pounding. Retrial in 2009, Christchurch, defense hammered police errors. The house burned down days later at family request, destroying footprints. New experts debated blood spatter, computer timing. Jury deliberated mere hours, not guilty. But the guessing didn't stop, compensation bids twisted further. Justice Ian Binnai in 2012 deemed David innocent on balance of probabilities, but Minister Judith Collins rejected it, calling in Ian Callanan who said no in 2016. Ex gratia $925,000 settled it, but debates raged. In the end, resolution came, but it's bittersweet. No one fully solved, the case unsolved in public eyes. David walked free in 2009, but stigma lingers. He married, started a family, yet unemployment and whispers follow. No inquests, no closure for extended family grieving lost loved ones. Broader impact? It shook New Zealand's justice system. Police reforms, the 2020 Criminal Cases Review Commission born from such fiascos. Media exploded. Books like Karam's David and Goliath, podcasts like Black Hands, documentaries fueling division. Public polls show split camps, half see innocence, half guilt, highlighting how one morning's horror can fracture a society, breeding distrust and calls for better evidence handling. Taxpayers footed nearly $7 million, a reminder of justice's cost. And there you have it, a tale that still echoes, leaving us pondering, framed or guilty. The truth might forever hide in that Dunedin dawn.